Yo everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So it's been a while since I've done a video about BAKWAS life. BAKWAS life meaning nonsense life. What we're going to be talking about today is Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi mother-in-laws, and we are talking not about the most beautiful, lovely, kind, amazing, supportive and has boundaries, not nosy mother-in-law, like for example like my mum is. My mum's a great mother-in-law to my sister-in-law. Now, unfortunately, not every Indian mother-in-law is like that, and I'm going to specifically keep saying Indian just because it's easier than me saying all three countries. But South Asian mother-in-laws have got a particular reputation of being in a particular way to their daughter-in-laws. Now, a lot of people may not know this, but in the South Asian culture, a lot of families live together as multi-generational families, and it is expected in the Asian traditions, especially going back and bringing it down to this generation, that when a woman marries a man, she is expected to go and live with that man and his family if he has already been living with them. This is not the same as a man who's already been living on his own and she goes and lives with him, or vice versa, or they get a place together, whatever. So she is expected to go and live with him and his family, which could include his mum, his dad, and maybe his siblings as well. If he's the only son, more than likely he is going to remain there to take care of his parents. So this is something that has been going on since ye old days, God knows how long. And unfortunately, there have been many instances with relationships being completely broken down, women being traumatized for the entirety of their lives as a result of psychotic, evil, crazy Indian mother-in-laws. Now, it is a well-known fact within the South Asian community that boys have always been preferred, as boys are the ones that carry on the family name, even though nowadays there are many progressive women out there that do not take their husband's surnames, yet children still take their father's surnames, so yet still that whole generational carrying on the family name sort of thing. So going back to mother-in-laws themselves, so there is this expectation that daughter-in-laws must move in with their in-laws. Now what happens is, initially, when, especially if it's like an arranged marriage sort of situation, which does happen a lot in South Asian communities, I don't know why people have this specific focus on Muslims, which is what I've noticed in a lot of my videos. You lot have got problems. Stop getting all defensive and saying, no, it's Pakistani Muslims, Sikh Indians don't do this, or Indian Hindus don't do this, and Bangladesh, no one cares. You know, at the end of the day, this subject is very important. It's not about pitting cultures or religions against each other. And yes, it does happen with all cultures and all South Asian religions. One may have more of a majority than another, but that's not the issue here. The issue is that it happens at all. Now, when it happens is when a couple are first introduced to each other, if they have not had a love kind of relationship, is that everybody's on their best behavior. And that includes the mother-in-law. Best behavior because she wants to get the best kind of daughter-in-law for her amazingly fabulous, great son. Now, bear in mind, this son could be jobless, uneducated, doesn't really leave the house, contributes nothing to the household, doesn't know how to cook, doesn't know how to clean, can barely wash himself, but oh my god, he is the apple of his mother's eye because he is her one and only prized possession son, and nobody in her mind is good enough for her beautiful baby boy. Bear in mind, this guy is a complete and utter bum, and in return this son deserves nothing but the most highly educated, beautiful, tall, slim, must be fair skin daughter-in-law who can cook every single meal under the sun. It cannot be anything less than gourmet. Cook, clean, raise babies, hold down a job, maybe if you're lucky, and do this and do that and do that. Meanwhile, the son isn't expected to do anything at all, but the mother-in-law has these mass expectations of what her daughter-in-law should be, but she doesn't allow these things to be known from the offset because she wants to snare that girl for herself. Why would she admit that this is what I actually want from a daughter-in-law? I sure end up scaring off this girl, obviously. There are so many South Asian mother-in-laws out there that still are very much set to this kind of old school mindset that women must be a certain way, they must dress a certain way, they must have their voices at a specific tone, they must be seen and not heard, but even when they are seen, they must be seen in such a way which still respects the family's modesty, because at the end of the day it's all about the family's honor, the family's respectability within the community. What will other people think? So she must be the best of the best and nothing less than that. And unfortunately, there is no such thing as the perfect daughter-in-law. There is no such thing as the perfect woman. There is no such thing as the perfect person. And unfortunately, even on paper, if this daughter-in-law comes across as the best of the best, God forbid one tiny little flaw arises and the mother-in-law will fixate on that and slowly break her down to make sure that she knows her role in the household. She needs to know that the mother-in-law is queen bee, is number one, is top of the household, and you have come in as a guest. You have come in not as a companion for my son, but somebody to serve his needs, because I will at some point no longer be able to do so myself. From my own personal point of view, I have known so many South Asian women that have ended their marriages, that have escaped abusive marriages, that have been left mentally scarred to the point where their families have had to rescue them as a result of their mother-in-law's behavior. These mother-in-laws, bear in mind, are quite nice at bullying their own husbands and emasculating them. So a lot of the time the father-in-laws will not also step in and say, you know what, you're being a bit harsh, because he's scared of his own bloody wife. And then the son has been raised in such a way that he loves his mother to pieces. She is the number one in his eye, but he does not respect her. Love and respect are two very different things, and those things sometimes get merged and blurred together. But there is a reason sometimes why sons will not necessarily step in between the mother and his wife, because he actually is afraid of his mother and he loves his mother more than anything else. Mummy issues, whole Freudian thing going on there, but he doesn't actually have respect for her. Therefore he has no respect for women, and therefore he has no respect for his wife. I'll read a little bit of this article to you from the Hindustan Times from a couple of years ago, which I will link below for you guys. It's from a couple of years ago. It says, an increasing number of women are choosing to live separately with their husbands due to a sudden change in the behavior of their mothers-in-law post-marriage. In India, the majority of cases after a couple ties the knot, the daughter-in-law moves into the husband's house to live with his parents. But a recent study conducted by the online marriage portal Shadi.com suggests that this tradition is slowly changing. These days, an increasing number of women, almost 64.1% of those polled, are choosing to start nuclear families away from their in-laws. Privacy and compatibility issues with in-laws have been some popular reasons for this development a long time. However, when we spoke to a few newly married women, we discovered that a common grudge they all had revolved around how the behavior of their mother-in-laws had changed drastically after they got married. Now, these women, these mothers-in-law, were apparently extremely good to these women before marriage. So I'm going to read one or two cases for you guys. They've changed the names, obviously. So before Nishima, 28 years old, a telecom professional, got married to this guy, she regularly visited his house, maintained an excellent rapport with her mother-to-be, but says that a couple of months after her marriage, her equation changed with not only her mother-in-law, but also her father-in-law. They started asking me to dress in only Indian outfits and even eat only what they liked. I enjoyed cooking, but they didn't let me cook, even for my husband. When I refused to do what they wanted me to do, they started ill-treating me. I felt suffocated, and my husband and I moved out eventually. At least she had some sort of support from her husband, because there will be many men out there that just say to the woman, you know what, suffer it up and shut up. You know what, my mum is queen. Don't argue against my mum. My mum is right, you are wrong. And these women will not be able to ever leave the situation. Another woman, a 30-year-old Indian woman, her mother-in-law had problems with her office timings. Even though hers was an arranged marriage, her in-laws knew everything about her, including the fact that she worked with an advertising company. But once she got married, their attitude completely transformed. I would often come home late from work. Though my husband never had any problems, my mother-in-law didn't like it. Suddenly one day my in-laws ordered me to leave my job because they felt that it wasn't good for a woman to come home late. Then they started asking me to help with the daily chores. They said the house help had quit and they were finding it difficult to find a replacement. I couldn't cope with this daily routine. Now they also live separately from the in-laws. Insecurity issues is another issue as well. Another woman called Tanya Bansal, 28 years old, a media professional, not only had to deal with the unrealistic expectations, but she was also blamed for influencing her husband by the mother-in-law. Earlier, I used to be treated like a VIP, but I don't know what happened after marriage. Suddenly, she wanted me to do things that were definitely too old school for me, while my husband was always an introvert and would take his decisions on his own. After marriage, he started assuming that I was the one influencing him and that I was trying to snatch her only son away from her. So it's like a power struggle almost. Like I said already, these women believe themselves to be the queen of their own roosts, which you are. Fair enough, it's your house, you've built it up, you've done your thing. But bear in mind that when you start to bring in another woman into the situation, she will also want to share those responsibilities or not, and you have to accept that. So in the same article, a psychologist has said it's frustrating for the mothers-in-law to see that the new age women does not sit at home like perhaps she did when she was a younger daughter-in-law. The new age woman works and contributes to the household's earnings, as it should be. On the other hand, daughter-in-laws too might not be used to taking advice from a new matriarchal figure in their lives. A daughter-in-law becomes part of a new family, so the mother-in-law advises her in the way that she would advise her son. Often progressive women have an issue with that. Bear in mind that I've never been married, but obviously I know a lot of South Asian women, a lot that have been married, a lot that have been divorced. I'm just talking about things from my perspective and my point of view, from what I've seen over the past 4 decades of me being alive. I've come across with mother-in-laws which have completely alienated their daughter-in-laws from their entire family, leaving them as nothing but slaves in the household. Even when they have got jobs or they're allowed to have a job, it's so that all that money goes into the household. She's not allowed to spend any money on herself. Her children suffer as a result. She no longer loves her husband, but she can't leave because she's afraid or whatever reason. She's been manipulated and trauma bonded to a point where she can't leave. She can't even get any kind of advice or help from her family because she has been completely cut off from them. I've come across women that have been expected to fulfill a stereotypical Indian daughter-in-law's role, meaning you cook, you clean, you serve, you cook, you clean, you serve. Work, maybe, we'll think about it. Maybe if you are allowed to, if you happen to have been a high flyer and they're loving that salary, of course, you will be expected to still bring in that money. But at the same time, dare you neglect any of your other duties? A mother-in-law can sit there with her feet in the air and you are expected to serve her. Bear in mind, you've got a mother of your own, but God forbid if you want to try and help your own parents, no, you've got somebody else's mother to be serving now. I've come across mother-in-laws that beat their daughter-in-laws, starved them, financially abused them as well, physically abused them, mentally abused them. I have come across some horrific mother-in-laws, but these people to the community, upstanding members of the community, they will brag about their daughter-in-laws. Oh my God, you guys, I happen to be in an environment where I was sat with a whole bunch of aunties. And when I say aunties, they're older than me, they've got children my age, and their sons are all married. Oh my God, the one-upmanship that was happening in that room about their daughter-in-laws. My daughter-in-law brings me tea in bed. My daughter-in-law massages my feet. My daughter-in-law cooks 5-course meals a day, and that's after doing a 12-hour shift at work. My daughter-in-law this, my daughter-in-law that. And I was literally just sat there, the only one who's never been married, obviously younger than these lot by a good 30-40 years, listening to them thinking, you lot are pathetic. Because I know what the joke is. The joke is that you will never say to your actual daughter-in-laws themselves how great they actually are, and it's just a persona and a show to show off to all the other women that you've got the best daughter-in-law. But at the end of the day, your daughter-in-law is actually miserable. So a lot of the time there are these mother-in-laws out there, these South Asian mother-in-laws that will brag and brag and brag about their daughter-in-laws to anyone that will listen. But when it comes to the actual daughter-in-law herself, oh, your food's a bit salty. Oh, this could be a bit better. Or you missed a spot when you were cleaning. The expectations are too much. These women look for perfectionism where there is none. And don't even get me started on the women that beat their daughter-in-laws. Oh my God. If a mother-in-law laid one finger on me, I would get divorced the next day. Not after pushing her down the stairs first. Because at the end of the day, you have to have your husband's support, but you also have to understand that that is his mother. So it very much plays down to how the son himself has been raised as well. Can he see that his mother is a manipulative individual? Is he like his mother, or has he spotted that manipulation early on and decided that he doesn't want to be like that? There has to be that fine gap that you have to bridge, and it's a very difficult one, don't get me wrong. When a husband is caught between his his mother and his partner. Now, you obviously want to appease both sides, so you have to make sure that you are as neutral as possible, but at the same time be understanding to both sides so that you come to a mutually respectable agreement at the end, and nobody feels left out and no one feels that they were given a better deal than the other one. The constant manipulation, the abuse, the subtle abuse that can build up over years and years and years and years. I don't know how many women that I've come across that have especially moved over to the UK from either India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, left their entire families, moved into households so far away from anyone and been treated like absolute crap. There's nowhere they can run, there's nowhere they can escape, there's no one they can call for help, there's nothing that they can do. They are isolated, they are away from everything and anyone. And don't get me wrong, I know that this isn't just a South Asian thing. Sometimes mother-in-laws, no matter what religion, race, culture, creed they come from, they can be absolutely awful, because in their eye their son is their king, not their partner. Their son is, and nothing but the best for their son. And unfortunately in their eyes there is nobody better for their son than them. There's so much you can dissect from this. I know a lot of these elder generation women have had to suffer the same kind of thing from their own in-laws themselves, but you would think that they would have realized that this kind of behavior is not normal. But unfortunately they have been indoctrinated and conditioned mentally and manipulated so hard that they've actually believed that those actions are correct and they're right and they want to do exactly the same. Unfortunately for them, women nowadays are smarter, they are quicker in their mindset, they have experience, they have education, they have knowledge. They have all of these things at their fingertips to be able to know what they should have and should expect from a marriage and what they shouldn't. And nobody should have to put up with being manipulated. Mother-in-law should welcome a new daughter into her home, love her, cherish her, take care of her, but at the same time, yes, you should have certain expectations. If a grown-ass woman is moving into your house and is not pulling her weight, like is not ever cooking or ever helping to clean or ever helping to do anything, I don't think that there's anything wrong with saying anything about that, because at the end of the day you're a grown adult and you should contribute to a household. But at the same time, that does not give mother-in-laws carte blanche to literally belittle these women into the ground so that they can mold them to the point where they have basically got their own unpaid slave in their house. God forbid if these daughter-in-laws give birth to girls first, then God help them. They will be berated, they will have all kinds of issues, and the son meanwhile will just sit back and just do absolutely nothing. So that's it for my video on today's discussion in Bakwas Life about Indian mother-in-laws. Let me know what your experiences are. I know many of you will have them and I empathize and sympathize with you so much. I hope that things improve for you. I hope that things get better for you. I hope that if you aren't able to resolve the situation, that you do take that step to do something about it, because at the end of the day, life is too short to be unhappy, miserable, manipulated and sad. You know, we've only got one life to live and you should be able to live it happily and freely, and either that is with your family or without your family. The choice lies completely with you. I hope you guys are great and wonderful, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.